Hello everyone, it's me Duncan here and I'm back talking about the Last Guest remake that was cancelled long ago. Hello Hunter, welcome to the chat. Oh, I got a lot of hearts. I love the little hearts. So yeah, I'm going to continue on reading the script of the scrapped remake, but first I should answer a question that someone sent. Hello Nope, welcome to the chat. But first, I'm going to answer a question that someone in the community post I made when I said I was going to do another video talking about the remake has sent. So this one is this question was by Guesty Games 1219, and they asked, "Yeah, quick question. How come this got cancelled?" So the reason the remake got cancelled is because, for one, a lot of the Roblox animators had to quit because, life. They were busy with stuff and things. Another reason why it was cancelled was because none of the animators were communicating with me at all. Wait, is my mic on? Yep, my mic is on. Communicating with me at all about the remake, like about the scenes. Another reason it was cancelled was because I was getting stressed out because I made the mistake of promising my fans that the remake will release next year or something, like part 1. That was a big mistake. Worst mistake of all. So likewise, I decided to just cancel it because I didn't want to get stressed out. But yeah, let's start talking about The Last Guest 2 remake. Well, part 2 of the remake that I had planned, but things didn't go according to plan. Here's the script. Well, it's not the script, it's my... Let me check. So if you remember, there was a scene where Shez, went to see Rose at night, but he gets caught by the Colonel, who basically knows that Shez knows about the secret. Damn, I didn't even know you were making a remake, yet alone it's getting cancelled. Yep. Hello, fanboy, welcome to the chat. Yeah, I had a trailer for the well, it was a teaser trailer for the remake that teases, that trailer was actually made by Game of Shade Studios. So anyways, Colonel tells Shez that he knows that he was the one who killed his mom, and basically Colonel tells him if he, dare tells TBC or whatever, he would kill him. Like, he mocks him, basically saying how it would be easy to kill Shez because, And then we cut to the scene where Shez and Sarah are heading to the prison. Basically the same thing of The Last Guest 2, a compilation of them playing and all that. And then it ends with not just Shez, but Sarah frustrating at the shim. And then the camera cuts the zoom out to not a elite bacon hair, but rather Dale, the sniper bacon hair from the Guest Games, who was again originally named after me, Duncan, but people kept calling him a self-insert, so I changed it to just Dale to avoid the whole, oh, this guy's the self-insert of Duncan spiel. And I have to reassure you guys, no, Dale was never a self-insert of me. But anyways, in scene 12, we then show Shez and Sarah heading to the prison camp, both holding an umbrella and sharing it together while holding food supplies. They see Rose outside, well, not outside of the prison, but you know, like it was raining, she was soaking wet, so Shez quickly ran over to see what's wrong. Sarah asked her if one of the prisoners or bacon soldiers had hurt her, because I hinted at that the bacon, I mean not the bacon soldiers, the guest prisoners hurt each other. Like, some even go so far to kill someone and then eat them. Yeah, no, I'm not even kidding. I even had like a whole little comic thing up on my Ko-Fi that shows an example that being a guest prisoner who passed out because of the hot weather. So one of the guest prisoners picked up a rock and crushed his head with it, and then proceeded to eat the insides of that guest. Because the bacon soldiers barely fed them food. But anyhow, Shez quickly runs over and asks what had happened. And then Rose shook her head and explains that she was chosen for the guest games, which Shez is in horror. Sarah's in tears. Rose tells them... Sarah tells Rose that it's terrible, and then Shez spoke up saying he has an idea. Basically, the idea is they're going to try and free the guests, which of course... Sarah's like, wouldn't your father be upset? But then Rose spoke up and said that Shez and Sarah should execute the plan before reassuring Sarah by reminding her that Shez is the son of the Bacon General, so he could maybe convince the Bacon General to change his ways. Which of course they're like, okay, let's do this. Let me see if I could actually find an image, because I'm sure that there's also an image of... let's see. Come on, Discord, yep. Can I switch? Yep, here we go. See, there is Rose. Read the sign of Rose telling her friends that she's been chosen. And then we have her friends looking absolutely horrified. I'm pretty sure these images were by Pink. Yes, Rose is different. It's because I chose to read the sign Rose. Just like I did with the characters, they got redesigned. Like, Shez no longer has that X scar. Instead, he has like a straight knife scar because, you know, his father slashed him with a knife in his backstory. Because out of anger and frustration with his son, he slashed him. And instead of, you know, apologizing, he was like, oh, well, you deserve that. I know, it's pretty fucked, eh? But anyhow, so they agree on the idea. Sarah, Shez then tells Rose to, you know, tell the other guests to be prepared and that they'll be there at like 12 in the morning. They said goodbye. Rose raves by, but as soon as they are gone, she turns to look in the other direction, revealing a tall shadow walking towards her, causing her to step back slightly. What? That's horrible for Shez, sorry. If you can't tell, that's supposed to be the Colonel approaching her, having eavesdrop on both Rose, Shez, and Sarah, because, you know, he told Rose to lie to Sarah and Shez. But anyhow, next scene then shows Shez and Sarah at the medibay. Sarah was packing some things into a medikit. The two were discussing their plan on how they were going to free the guests. After they were done talking, Sarah walked out of the medibay dressed in a doctor's outfit. Then Shez follows her from behind and, you know, cuts to show the two bacon soldiers talking to each other. They stop when they notice Sarah walking towards them. One of the bacon soldiers ran over to her and asked Sarah what she was doing here. Hang on, let me see if I can find the script for the bit when... No, not it, not it, not it, not it, not it, no, no, no. No, no, no. No. Okay, I found the script. So basically, Ched said, "Alright, Sarah, remember, you distract the guards by telling them that you're here to give medical treatment to one of the guests, and while the guards are distracted. And then Sarah says, you'll go and unlock the gates while said guards are busy chatting with me. Ched says, right, let's do this. I'll follow you from behind. I'll make sure to stay out of those bacon soldiers' sight." Sarah says, okay. Bacon Soldier 1 says, you know, I have always wondered why the Colonel doesn't have a wife, yet, like, he's in his 30s. I know, like, I ain't judging him if he prefers men, I totally support it. And then they get interrupted by, what even is this dialogue? Don't ask me, I just wanted to... And then, Bacon Soldier is like, wait, hang on, who's that? Sarah, what are you doing here? It's like 12 in the morning. Then Sarah said there's a male guest in the prison in serious need of medical attention. His leg is badly injured and I need to go in and check on him. Bacon Soldier 1 then replies with, what? No one, not even the Bacon Show will alert me about this. Where's your father? Shouldn't he be supervising you while you treat the guests? And then Sarah said, my father, Dr. Martin, is getting the other medical supplies that we'll need for the guests. He just sent me here to check on him. And then the Bacon Soldier's like, I'll need to double check with the Bacon General about this because this is sounding baloney to me. And then he gets attacked. They start getting attacked by, you know, Sheds. And yes, there's a lot of swearing in this series. And, you know, after this whole thing, Sarah's like, oh, good job, Jess. And then Jess also, you know, congratulate her. And when they open the gates, Sarah realised that the guests aren't there. And as Jess is slowly stepping back, realising that something isn't right, he accidentally bumped into the Bacon General. Because the Bacon General, the Colonel and the other soldiers weren't there. The Colonel starts going, you know, like, well, what is this? What's this? And then he says in a mocking tone, the Bacon General's son, trying to free the guests? Is my eyes deceiving me? And then the Bacon General said, Shez, I can't believe you. I raised you to be a strong and powerful soldier, but instead you choose to throw that away by doing this. Because yes, the Bacon General's also in this scene. Pardon me. There's a good reason too. So Sarah's like, how did you know about this? And the Bacon General said this isn't relevant right now. I want you two to come with me to my office so I can discuss what to do with you. What to do with you right this instant. Sarah, I'll be learning your father about what you've been doing. And then both Sarah and Jez look at each other like, well, we're in shit. And then the Colonel growls before shouting, why don't we just fucking kill the traitor right here? Which of course the Bacon General tries to stop him. And the Colonel opens fire. But before y'all think, oh no, he just shot Sarah. It's like that scene all over again. No. No, he did not shoot Sarah. He did not shoot Sarah. Because what happened was Shez got in the way of Sarah. Because he wants to protect his friend. What actually happened was he shot Shez. Yep. Shez dies in this series. For some reason, I decided to kill Shez off. And during the scene... Hang on, let me look. During the scene, the shows the general, knelt over his son, having tears in his eyes, trying to revive him. And then Sarah quickly moves in, trying to also... Yeah, then Sarah moves in. Let me find the scene. Sarah moves in, trying to also help revive Shez. And where's the colonel, you may ask? He ran off. He ran off to, to alert the bacon doctor, about what had happened. Sarah quickly moves the bacon channel out of the way so she could try and revive Shez, checking his pulse. Meanwhile, the colonel had ran off to get the bacon doctor. Meanwhile, the bacon general is pleading for his son to not leave him, begging for Shez to stay awake, saying that he didn't want to be alone and all that. Then the scene starts slowly fade to black, and all you could hear is the bacon general pleading for his son to stay alive. And as the scene is slowly fading back, his voice starts to distort because And then next we cut to a scene to show the bacon general sitting on the chair in his office. And he had something in his hands. Sarah walks in to have a look. Walks in. And she starts slowly walking up to him. She pulls a chair to sit next to him and see what he was looking at. And it was an old photo of his wife Hazel holding Shez as a baby in her hands. Which of course Sarah starts feeling even more bad and quickly looks at the bacon general to express how sorry she was about what had happened 2 days ago. Because it's supposed to take place 2 days. But the bacon general doesn't answer her. She stays silent for a moment before telling the bacon general what Shez had told her about. Yeah, me too, I feel bad for Shez. Honestly, I feel this scene could have been... Shez's death could have been executed a bit better because... Originally, I wanted Sarah to be the main character in the series. But unfortunately, I didn't really give her enough breathing room. I didn't give her enough room for her to... Wait, did I switch? Oh, so I didn't. My bad. But the problem was, I didn't give Sarah enough breathing room. I didn't give her enough room for her to actually... I should have gave Sarah more room to actually expand her a bit more. To give her more, personality and stuff. Show a bit more about Sarah and her backstory. But no, I was oh, it's just no offense, I think. Yeah, I agree. Felt like I should have just gave Sarah a bit more breathing room rather than just Well, Sarah's suddenly the new main character of the series. Because I just realised most of the scenes focus on Shez. Rather than Shez and Sarah, it's just Shez. Like, yes, there are scenes that focus on Shez and Sarah, but not Sarah as a whole. There was one scene that focused on Sarah, but that was her talking to the bacon doctor, and that's about it. But yeah, whatever. You know, Sarah tries to tell the Baker General that it was the Colonel who killed his wife, but then the Baker General gets mad at her, telling her to not lie like that. He explained to her that it was the guest who killed Hazel. But of course, Sarah tried to explain to the Baker General that Shez had found the knife and all that. Followed by telling him about the stab wound that the Colonel had was self-inflicted. And before the Baker General could argue with her some more, the Colonel knocked on the office door. The Colonel enters and basically enters with two of his elite soldiers. The Colonel lets the Baker General know that his soldiers are ready for battle against the Robloxian army and that he needs them. The General nodded at the Colonel before turning to Sarah, telling her that her and her father will need to be there to help in case that there's any injured Bacon soldiers who will need their help. Then the next scene basically shows the Bacon soldiers fighting the Robloxian army. Then it cuts to Sarah and her father inside a medic tent, helping one of the Bacon soldiers who have like a bullet in his leg. He proceeded to ask Sarah to go get a medic kit, which was next to the entrance of the tent. So she does, but when she went to pick it up, she could hear the Colonel talking to Dale. Ignore the fact that it says Duncan, it's supposed to be Dale. And let me get an image of the Colonel and Dale. If I could find it. Okay, so here's Sarah in one of the medic tents, overhearing the Colonel talking to Dale. You know, the Colonel is telling Dale his plan. And I'll read the plan out loud. Let me just look for it. You know, here's the Baker doctor saying, I'm going to take him aside to treat his gun wound in his leg. I just hope he isn't badly injured. Wait, oh, whoops. I accidentally skipped something. Sarah needs you. The Baker doctor telling Sarah, may you please get the kit, which of course, so he could remove, as he quotes, a stubborn bullet from his leg. Sarah says she will. But as she went to get the kit, she overhears the Colonel say, alright, listen here, Dale. I need you to eliminate the Bacon General after he has successfully killed guest 1337. He is currently going after him at this moment, so I want you to stand by in the watchtower and be prepared to shoot him. Dale said yes, sir. Then Sarah calls him a bastard and decides to run off to warn the General. The Baker doctor sees this and yells back at Sarah, which of course she tells him she doesn't have time to explain. She needs to warn the Baker General about the sniper saves the guests. And you know, it basically cuts to similar scene to part 1, you know. But instead it's Sarah yelling at, well, the Baker doctor yelling at the Baker General about the sniper. Which of course the Baker General looks up to see the sniper. And Shez quickly pushes the Baker General out of the way. Sarah pushes Guess out of the way too. Or something, I don't know. No, I think they... Wait, let me read it. Sorry, it's... You know, let me check. Oh, here we go. Sarah pushes the Guess out of the way. And the Bacon doctor pushes the Baker General out of the way, and then Dale opened fire, but of course he missed the Baker General and accidentally hit one of the oil drums, causing it to explode. That's the explosion you hear in part 1. And then next it shows the Baker General helping the Baker Doctor with putting guests in the back of the army vehicles. Because of course Gabriel was unconscious because he hit his head. I guess on something hard when, you know, Sarah pushed him out of the way. Sarah stays in the back of the vehicle to, you know, keep an eye on Gabriel's breathing and to assist him if something is needed. The Baker General also hops in the vehicle too. They drive off. The Baker Doctor exits the vehicle and carries guests in the medic bay. The Baker General is about to follow him, only for Sarah to stop him and say that she needs to talk to him. And that is where part 2 ends. Yeah, that's how part 2 ends. It ends with... It ends with, you know, on a cliffhanger. But don't worry, we got part 3. Yep. In part 3, we cut to a point of view of Dixon. If you remember Dixon, who is basically Matt's replacement. Basically, in the point of view, he sees Gabriel being carried away by the Bacon Doctor and Bacon General, which of course caused him to think that his friend is being kidnapped. And then we cut, and then he, you know, passes out, and we cut to, you know, the General walking over to another character called Blake, who's supposed to replace Smalley. So Blake, he tells... Oh, sorry. The General... You know, the General asks Blake if he's seen Gabriel Dixon, which of course he shakes his head and say he couldn't see anyone. But he didn't mention about the explosion and that there's a chance that Gabriel may have been caught in it. General went quiet, and no, not Bacon General, but normal General. He asks the soldiers if he asks one of the soldiers if they want to come with him. But of course, some refused. Some came up with excuses on why they couldn't come. And no, not the bullies. The bullies ain't in this, obviously. Instead, these soldiers actually have good reasons why they can't go. So Blake says that he'll go with the General. So they went. The soldiers started, you know, taking down their tents and everything, and then General Blake got into the vehicle to the direction where the explosion happened. They find Dixon. Dixon is, you know, thankfully still alive. But unconscious, but still alive. The General said that they'll need to rush to the hospital quick, but he gets impaled by a sword by none other than the Colonel's elite soldiers. Which of course Blake quickly runs off. Get into a vehicle. Of course, at first the engine wouldn't start working. And it took him like 3 tries, but he thankfully, you know, escaped. And then we cut to the next scene that shows Dale nervously entering the Colonel's office. The door opens slowly with a creak sound. And there's a elite guard standing behind him, basically stopping him from, trying to escape. Dale enters the office where the Colonel is not bothering to look at him, and he tells him that he failed to assassinate the Baker General. The Colonel had an annoyed look on his face before slowly standing up from his desk and asking, Dale where the Baker General was, which of course Dale is like, the last time he saw him was he was driving off in one of the vehicles, and he mentioned that he managed to get a glimpse on what was inside the back of the vehicle, saying that he saw Gabriel and Sarah at the back. The Colonel gets mad and starts slowly walking towards Dale. And he seems to be holding something in his hand. And of course Dale was forced backwards against the wall, and he asks him, are you telling me there is a possibility that they could be in this empire right now? Dale stuttered. He tried to explain. He tried to explain to him that, yes, no, maybe, yeah, maybe, no. But before he could even get his words out, let me just look for the scene, because the Colonel brutally stabs Dale in the eye with a pen, as you can see here, and then he proceeds to, repeatedly hits him against the eye over and over and over and over and over and over again until this poor dude is like dead. Like, he's just straight up dead. Dale's just straight up was killed brutally. And this scene is actually inspired by a scene from Far Cry 4, I think? With Pagan Min, when he was not happy with the fact that the bus was shot at. So he walked up to one of his soldiers or whatever, telling him, you're supposed to just stop the bus, not shoot the bus. And then he proceeds to pull out, like, this penknife thing and just stabs him over and over with it. Yeah, that's what it was inspired by. It was inspired by that scene. Okay, I'll just switch back. And after all that, Colonel decides that, that he'll have to deal with it himself. And then we cut to show, Gabriel lying in the hospital bed. He has the IV strip in his arm, and he's sitting next to his bed is the Baker General, who is in a wooden chair keeping an eye on him. Gabriel starts to wake up. At first he's confused, but as soon as he sees the Baker General, he freaks out, and he managed to pull the IV strip out of his arm and launch himself at the Baker General in an attempt to try and harm him. And I'll just grab that scene right now, because one of my concept artists also made the scene for me. Because basically in this scene, Guest was able to grab a scalpel from the table and was trying to use it to kill, him. He was yelling at him, telling him, you wipe out my species, you killed a lot of people and blah 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 blah. But before he could stab him or anything, Shez and Sarah came in, and Sarah, who's, you know, been training. I mean, not Shez and Sarah, Shez and the Bacon Doctor came in. And Sarah, who's been training. Oh, I mean, the Bacon Doctor ended up restraining, and my bad, I misremembered. She was able to knock the scalpel off the the Gabriel, and he restrains the last guest, and she's trying to explain to him, you know, that they're on his side, which of course he calls bullshit, and starts talking about how the Bacon General did all this bad stuff, and the Colonel as well. And then the Bacon General started explaining his side of the story, basically saying, you know, he's actually on their side now because he learned that the Bacon Colonel was the one who killed his wife, as well as, you know, killed Chez. And then they start slowly looking at the PC and realize that the Colonel and his soldiers were outside. So likewise, Sarah, Bacon General, and Gabriel quickly hid. Let me just get the scene of the... Let me just look for the part 3 script of the scene. Oh, one image. Wait, why isn't it popping up? Ah, here we go. Much better. So there's a scene where the Colonel's talking to his soldiers. Elite soldiers saying, I won't let that guest Jasper or that bitch get away from me that easily. Soldiers find and slaughter those three, and one of you bring the head of the last guest. I'm going to have a word with my quote-unquote friend Martin. And he enters the room. The Baker Doctor's, you know, pretending that nothing's out of the ordinary, and said, Oh, Colonel, may I help you with anything? Which, of course, the Colonel says, I don't need anything at this moment. I'm just here to inform you that Jasper is no longer capable of being the leader of our empire. Which, of course, the Bacon Doctor acts dumb and is like, Oh my, how come? Colonel says, he is a traitor. One of my soldiers had seen him help a guest during the war, and we had with the Robloxian army. Both him and your teenage daughter Sarah. Which of course the Baker Doctor fakes being shocked, saying, What? My daughter? A traitor? That's terrible. Which of course the Colonel's like, Indeed it is. Me and my elite guards are currently looking for them. They may be in the Bacon campus. You don't suppose you know where they are hiding now, do you? Which of course the Bacon Doctor pretends he doesn't know, saying that, No, I don't. He's like, Very well, but let me give you a warning. The Bacon Doctor gasps and grunts. The reason for that is because I'll show you the scene. The Colonel grabbed him by his shirt or throat or whatever, and basically he starts like threatening him. And I'll read the threat out loud. He says, If I find out that you're fucking aiding them in any way, shape, or form, I'll beat you until you're nothing but a bloody pop of mush and feed you to those guests. Which, of course, the poor Bacon Doctor nervously said, Yes, sir. And then the Colonel lets him go and acts like nothing ever happened. By saying, Good, I'll be going now. Which then we cut to the bacon doctor who reveals that, you know, they were hiding underneath, and he basically tells them that, you know, they're gone now, and that he'll come back to double check. And he'll, you know, bring them some food, water, and things to keep them comfortable during the night, not during the knife. And then we cut to Dixon waking up in the hospital, where he meets Blake, which of course Blake tells him that unfortunately Gabriel is, you know, gone. And explains that he couldn't find the corpse. Which of course Dixon mentions that the bacon hairs put Gabriel in the vehicle before he went unconscious. But Blake of course didn't believe him and asked him if Dixon was sure. But Dixon unfortunately isn't sure himself. And yeah, I implied that these two are gay, but whatever. Yeah, because I wanted to... The reason the Colonel is so violent is because I want to, you know, make Colonel more of a threat. Rather than, you know, just some man with muscles. I want him to be more of a threat in the series. But anyhow, we cut to the prison camp showing a bunch of prisoners working, and then the guards, you know, at the prison. Rose could be seen using a pickaxe to mine some rocks, which she is standing next to her mum. And then we cut to see the Baker General, Sarah and Gabriel, you know, spying. Baker General pointed out the two guards at the fence. Gabriel asked the Baker General why he couldn't just, you know, tell them to leave. Because, you know, he is the general, which of course the Baker General explained that, you know, the Colonel is now controlling his army and have manipulated them into believing that he's the traitor. So Sarah said she has a plan. Shows the Baker soldiers talking about the Colonel, you know, shit talking about him. And then they notice gas, which of course confuses one of the soldiers. And Sarah knocks the soldier out. And then Gabriel also knocked one of the soldiers out. Baker General comes out of his hiding spot holding some rope to, you know, tie them down so they wouldn't escape. Sarah then goes to the fence to talk to Rose and, you know, explain what happened to Chess and everything. And, you know, the Baker General has skill on his face. Sarah asks Rose about what happened to her father long ago. And then we get to a flashback scene of, you know, Rose as a child on the floor of her family's living room playing with her dollhouse. And then Mum decided to turn on the TV so she could watch the TV, so she could put on some cartoons for her daughter, only to be met with the news, which the news reporter talks about how at a bakery, which was run by a guest, was shot dead. And then it shows the CCTV footage of two bacon soldiers entering the bakery, both of them armed with guns. And there was a third marked buff soldier waiting outside the bakery. Of course, that being the Colonel. And then the father comes home. Rose runs to her dad to tell him what happened on the news. And, you know, the father looks at the TV to see the Colonel staring at the camera as if mocking. As if to mock whoever's, like, looking at the CCTV and everything. Then we basically get a scene similar to The Last Guest Free. Basically a compilation of the family spending time with each other. The next we see Rose lying in bed, asleep, but she was suddenly woken up by her parents arguing. basically her dad wants to move his family away, a hideout at the corn farm, but the father's wife didn't want them to move away because her sister could be still in Robloxia City, but, you know, her husband argued back, pointed out that her sister has been missing for like 2 months, and then saying that the police ain't doing anything to find her, saying that she is probably dead, which of course the mother argued back saying, no, she's not dead, I'm sure she's just missing. The husband continues arguing, saying that the police couldn't even find like a body or whatever of the guests. And then they suddenly jump because they hear the sound of Rose's door slamming. And so both the mum and father enters the room to apologise and comfort their child, try to reassure Rose that, alright, assure Rose that everything will be fine. And then we cut to the barn scene. Basically in the scene, it shows Rose and her mum picking some corn. And you know, her mum tells Rose to bring the basket to the house. But as she was walking past the barn, she hears the sound of gun clicking inside the barn. She turns around, sees a bacon soldier, and she starts screaming. Of course, her mum turns around to have a look too. She comes running to check on her daughter. This is how the scene would have played out. And yes, this is an older sign of Rose, ignore that. Well, I'll read the sign of Rose because they changed it, obviously. The bacon soldier basically threatens Rose and her mum, but then the father pointed a shotgun at his back, telling him, you know, to stay away from his family. But unfortunately, someone behind him shot the father 2 times. Rose quickly runs over to kneel beside her dad. And Rose's mum ran over too, only to be grabbed by 2 bacon soldiers. Rose is crying. Her father looked at his daughter, telling her that he loved her. Told her to take care of her mum before, you know, dying. And that's where we are introduced to the one and only Colonel. Who, you know, greets Rose. And then the next scene, you know, cuts to present day, showing Rose having tears in her eyes. She said that the Colonel had burned the bar down. You know, referencing part 1 of the Last Guest remake, where the news reported that a barn had been burned down. Which, of course, Gabriel pointed out, saying that Colonel probably did that to try to burn any evidence of their presence. Baker Cheryl expresses his remorse, saying that this was all his fault, before explaining to Gabriel how long ago he did want to end the war on guests, but after finding his wife murdered and the Colonel saying that it was a guest who killed her, he continued the, quote, cleansing. And then he then mentioned how he told the Colonel that he wanted to end this war before his wife's death. Mentioning he told him this after he and the Colonel shut up an orphanage where they knew that some of the orphan guest children were hiding and managed to kill them, except Gabriel, who had managed to escape. Gabriel was shocked to hear this, and he told him that if Dixon hadn't warned him, he would have been dead. Then Rose tells them that the guest games are starting tomorrow, which of course Gabriel was confused about what the hell the guest games were, so the Baker Shell explained to him. And you could hear the General explaining about the tunnels and all that. Gabriel had a look of horror before changing to an expression of determination. And no, it's not an Undertale reference, so please shut up. Don't you start with that shit. Don't you start saying it's an Undertale reference, please don't. But anyways, so what happened was Gabriel asked the Baker General what time the guest games start. He tells them the afternoon. Then Sarah tells them the plan of what they're going to do. The Baker General nodded with agreement. Rose waves and says Good luck, and then they leave. Basically, the plan was the Baker General would go and, you know, free Rose and the others from the prison camp, the ones who were left behind, while Guess and Sarah go free the guests who are waiting at the Guest Games Arena. Basically, it shows, you know, Guess and Sarah fighting, you know, the Bacon soldiers and manage to steal a keycard. And then the next scene we cut to the Bacon General walking towards the prison camp's entrance. Let me see if I actually have the screenshot. Yeah, I do. I do have the concept art. You know, what happened was the Bacon General, as he's walking towards the gate, he realized that there were no Bacon soldiers guarding the prison, but he noticed Rose was outside, so he quickly ran over and proceeded to ask Rose how she had gotten out of the prison, before asking about the whereabouts of the other guest prisoners. But Rose doesn't respond to him. He just gives him this sad expression, you know, looking really guilty. Which, of course, he asks her again, you know, what's the matter? Why are you upset? Unknowing to him that he's being surrounded by 3 Bacon soldiers. And then the scene cuts to black. Wait. And then the next scene, Gabriel and Sarah walking through the tunnel. They were walking in. You know, basically talking before finally, you know, they're fighting the soldiers and everything in this scene. Sarah, they managed to do it, but when they got to arena, there are no guests. They realized there wasn't any guests at the arena. Sarah decided to, you know, have a look herself. But when she turned around to tell guests that it's a trap, she sees guests had already been restrained by one of the elite soldiers, threatening to, you know, cut his throat. Sarah got into a fighting stance, ready to fight the elite soldier, only for 2 Bacon soldiers to quickly pin her arms behind her back. And then we have the Colonel, who has this evil smile on his face. And, you know, here we have guests restrain the elite guard, threatening him with the knife. Let me actually explain the scene a bit better. So basically what happened, they enter the raiding room of the guest games, but realize that there weren't any guests. Sarah decides to walk forward to check the arena, only to find that there were no guests inside, or any Bacon heads waiting for the games to start. But she did see the Bacon General on his knees with his arms tied behind his back. Shock, Sarah quickly... What if Rose was killed in the arena and never did the sacrifice of the final battle, which led to... I don't know. I don't know. What if Rose was killed at the arena? No idea. But anyhow, Sarah sees that the Bacon General was captured. Shocked, Sarah quickly turned to Gabriel to tell him that it's a trap, only to see that, you know, the last guest was restrained by the elite soldier who had like a little knife thing pointing at his, had like a little dagger pointing at his throat, ready to kill him. And then Sarah ends up getting captured too by the Colonel. The Colonel, of course, walked from the other side, congratulating them for making it this far. And let me just switch scenes. And of course, we have the Colonel restrained with his arms tied behind his back. Sarah asks the Colonel how he knew about the plans. And that's when he revealed that Rose is a traitor. You know, basically explained that it was Rose. I'm back. Hi, demon. Oh, Sarah doesn't die in the Last Guest remake. It's Shez who dies in the remake. Hello, demon. Welcome to the chat. And, you know, the Bacon Colonel basically says, oh, it's, you know, Rose who told me all this time. And then he says he has some plans for both Gabriel and the Bacon General, saying that he's going to make Guest and the Bacon General fight each other to death. And he mentions that after the games, he'll dispose of Sarah in front of her father. Which, of course, the Bacon General yell at the Colonel, basically telling him, dude, don't bring fucking Sarah into this. Don't bring her into it. She's only 15 years old, dude. Which, of course, the Bacon Colonel laughs, saying, you know, oh, I don't... Basically saying he doesn't give a fuck. And, of course, Guest yells at him, saying he isn't gonna... He refused to fight the Bacon General, which, of course, the Colonel laughs, saying, well, this is the best part, dude, if you refuse to fight. Or, if you die, I'm just gonna kill your wife and daughter. And then, we're basically cut to a scene similar to The Last Guest 3, where, you know, the Colonel calls up one of his elite guards, telling them, hey, dude, can you please, you know... Yeah, no, do that for me, thanks. And the scene basically ends here. And I think I'm done talking here. I'll continue talking more. Continue talking about part 4 probably tomorrow. So yeah.